Hi, my name is Lee Funnell from Seymour. I apologise if I've presented to anybody before, and I guess that I can only just apologise. I don't really know where to begin because I'm talking about convergence from a different way. You guys are talking about converged solutions from a telephony point of view. Commercially, we were doing that 10 years ago. And to us, we're moving beyond that now into other types of building intelligence and building convergence, which is really what I'm hopefully going to try and bore you with. So I'm going to quickly fly through some of these slides because I don't think they're particularly relevant, and get onto some of the biggest stuff. I just really wanted just to stop here just for a second about really where technology is and where it's come from. You know, back in sort of 1957, you know, nobody here old enough, but we do remember dot matrix printers. Technology's moved on. Anybody remember ARPANET? Nobody admits to it. Oh, there's just a couple of people sticking their hands up in the air. Compact disc came out in 1979, which have been around with us for a long time. They are now virtually dead. I now longer, just to give you an idea, in my house I have no Blu-rays, I have no DVDs, and I have no CDs, because I stream absolutely everything. And if you're not doing it, that's where we're going to be in the next 3 years. Apple then starts releasing their Apple Macintosh. AOL's founded, Google then starts being founded, the first text message is being sent, and then we literally just sort of jump up to where we are now. I was saying to analog telephony companies 10 years ago, if you guys don't learn IP, you're going to be out of business. And those guys have gone. I was saying to CCTV companies 5 years ago, if you don't learn IP, you're going to go out of business. And those companies are disappearing fast. I'm now talking to access control people. I'm now talking to building management solution providers. And the more and more that we're starting to do this, we're putting this over a common IP-based infrastructure. And that's really, really where we want. You'll see down there right at the end is smart PoE lighting, power over Ethernet lighting. We've just been working with a small company called Philips on a project out in Holland where all of the lighting system is LED. It reduces 75% of the electrical cost. There is no electrical cables, and it's all power over Ethernet enabled. And the user will actually take their smartphone and they actually connect to their own light fitting, and they will determine the light level in which they want. What is interesting, though, is that Philips have just gone back and done a survey with the users of this particular building, and depending on your age demographic is how likely you are willing to change your light level setting, because you've got to use a smartphone. So I was just thinking about the number of connected devices and where we are, and this is really interesting because, you know, we just had Oxford University talking about 4 connected devices, and the gentleman at the back talking about a number even greater. So I started thinking about the world population, and so we expect the world population to hit about 7.8 billion by 2020, and then I actually start looking at the number of connected devices. And we actually estimate by that time that the world population will have, personally, 7 connected devices connected to your network. Now, we're talking about wireless, aren't we, and we're talking about everything else, but I just want to go off on a slight tangent and now talk to you about storage. Because the reality is this is going to have a huge impact on your data center and your storage capabilities. We are expecting, at the moment, storage growth to grow tenfold over the next 5 years, storage requirements. Lots of people are talking about going to the cloud. The cloud is absolutely a wonderful thing. I'm hoping you're going to use a private cloud. At the moment, a lot of cloud services, your information is leaving the UK and it is going abroad because that's where electricity is cheaper to store that information. We are actually involved in developing a new standard at the moment to make sure UK information now stays into the UK, but that probably won't happen until next year or perhaps the year after. So we started thinking about buildings, and buildings are not very interesting things, I suppose, to some people. But we've got 4 billion people connected. We've got something in the region of about 25 million apps are going to be available to control your building and your individual requirements for where the user experience is happening. And if we start thinking about, when I say user experience, it's about the cost of a building. The cost of a building is so many millions, but it's how do you retain your staff and how do you make yourself look more attractive to potential students and other people coming in. And I hear the word student experiences. My daughter's currently looking at universities. She's looking at 5 at the moment, and I think most of them are in here. And one of her big things that she's talking about is Wi-Fi access and the experience that she can have. So she's not basing, perhaps correctly, not all of her choices based on the curriculum or what she's actually going to learn, but she's thinking about, how do I get on my Facebook, how do I get on, you know, to my YouTube, which is the biggest thing that we see. So I want to go back to our building and how we can make our building a little bit more functional over a convergence. And I use the word intelligent building. And the word intelligent building means so many different things to so many different people. I'm actually a director of the Intelligent Building Council. And I sit there with professors from Reading University and many others who are actually talking about how we design a building to make the building more environmentally. I'm looking at it from a network point of view where we can control that building and improve and enhance the experience. But we all sort of agreed on this, you know, that it integrates technology, it's a safer environment, it's more comfortable, productive, operationally efficient, you can read the rest. But that's really what we want out of our buildings. You know, we want our buildings to be integrated so we can integrate back to the buildings. And that's really where we want to be. So traditionally, I was hearing the word about silos, and if we look at a building is traditionally a segregated service. And one of the interesting things for me is universities tend to struggle slightly more with one department than any other commercial business, and that would be the facilities department. Facilities departments in universities seem to be something of their own. And the IT department wants to take things forward and they want to drive things forward, but they sometimes get held back by the facilities department. And they've got relationships with access control companies, they've got relationships with CCTV companies, they've got relationships with all these other people. And I think we can perhaps do it a little bit differently, but it is getting that integration, communication, convergence with our facilities teams. So my focus really and everything is to try and get all applications to run over, put it rather simply, an RJ45 platform. I'll talk about wireless in a minute. With power over Ethernet, we can now power all these devices very simply. We can have flexible cabling solutions. One of the biggest things that I hear from universities is about how your business is changing, that your business and the demands on your network infrastructure are ranging anything from, or growing between 5% and 15% year on year. But then when we talk to you about your infrastructure, how you're going to deliver it, we find out that your technology is somewhat lagging behind, or your cabling infrastructure needs to be massively upgraded, that your fiber's not good enough. And there's not enough detail in the specification to be able to deliver what you want it to do. And I'm very much of a focus that if you're investing a huge amount of money into your technology, you want to get as much life cycle out of that technology that you can. So I'm very much of a design philosophy that says whatever we're going to throw at our technology, the infrastructure is going to last for 20 years. Because I don't want to keep going back to that. And I'll come on to that perhaps in a little bit more detail in a second. But this little slide, everybody knows the sort of stuff there. IP telephony, you know, really started taking over, you know, in late 1990s, really took over in 2005. IP cameras, we are now selling more IP cameras than analog cameras. Building management solution systems are now fully moving to IP. I've just done a project out in the Middle East called Masdar City, the first environmental city in the world. When I go to my office, I take out my access card, that turns on the lighting, it delivers the lift to where I want to go, and when I actually go to my desk, it turns on the power to my desk. And I just want to hit just the power to your desk. We did a survey of quite a few commercial and university buildings, and we counted out what was connected at each desk location. And there were iPhone chargers, there was this charger, there was this charger, there was a VDU or multiple VDUs, all of these things, even though they're in standby, they're drawing power. And what we actually did was we integrated an intelligent PDU solution at each desk location. So when you took your access card, it delivered power. This one particular customer that I was working with in, let me just think, just outside London, they estimated we saved them, just by implementing that, around about £27,000 a year, just on 1,000 users, just in unwasted electricity. That then worked much better because we took it forward to hot desking. You know, what services do you deliver need to each hot desk environment? So we took it forward. So here's a very simple thing, and I'm not going to talk to you about PoE because you guys understand this every day of the week. But I was talking to a university recently in the north of the country with a facilities manager, and he said, you know, I don't understand these newfangled IP cameras, I want my traditional analog cameras. I said, great, so how are we going to connect those? And he said, they're pseudo IP. I said, what's pseudo IP? And he said, we run it over coaxial, we take it back to a network controller, and then we make it IP. And I said, that's great. How are you going to power these cameras? I'm going to have a 3-pin plug. I said, that's great. How much is it going to cost you to deliver the electrical power, have that installation done to that 3-pin plug? He said, between £250 to £300 per connection. I said, how much is the cost of a 48-port switch? When we actually worked it out, we saw immediately a 50% cost saving. He suddenly became a little bit more interested and willing to talk to the IT department. And this is really where I want us to think now about IP and how we converge our solutions. Everything that we can typically imagine can now be converged. We're doing projects all over the world where every type of solution is now being converged. You know, we're doing a project at the moment where a customer is actually building in their alarm and control systems and to their time clocks. So what they're doing in exam environments is they're turning off all the alarms in certain areas so bells don't ring, you know, because of an integrated solution. So this is how I want to try and work it out, and the challenges that we have facing moving towards convergence. You know, and it's number one, who's going to be responsible, because you've got all these stakeholders. Nobody really wants to put their foot in the water and try and have a gamble. The facilities guy is always there, because what am I going to give up? What am I going to lose control over? You've then got the question, who's going to deliver it, who's going to manage it, and then you've got the person saying, well, how much is it going to cost? Then I started thinking about power over Ethernet. You know, we really are seeing a change now. We're at 60 watts, we're now at 100 watts of power. We now have power over Ethernet enabled lighting systems. We've now got HD-based wireless technology has moved on, that we're now delivering wireless technology by power over Ethernet. As you all know, we're now at 2.5 gigabit Wi-Fi. Next year we expect that to be 5 gigabit Wi-Fi from a controller. So if you've got an infrastructure of category 5E or category 6 or 1 gigabit network, you're not going to get that data rate coming out of your wireless connections. Yeah, so the whole world is moving towards 10 gigabit. Commercially, we're already moving off 10 gigabit because we know it's not fast enough. We're moving towards 40 gigabit and beyond. So if we start thinking about all these control systems and the things that we've got, and I've only got a very, very simple list of things there, but these are all things that you can integrate and bring onto your ICT network and integrate them so they work together. One of the big things is we see when we talk to universities is about your growth change and your migration. And what we tend to find is that everybody has what I call perimeter-fed cabling. That it just goes around the outside of the room. It doesn't actually feed into the room, it doesn't feed under the floor. Commercially, you know, I work in the commercial world, commercially that system was pretty much binned about 10 years ago. So we go to what we call zone box deployments. So we'll either have a suspended ceiling or a suspended floor. If we want to relocate or move services, we just lift up the floor and we move the box and the cable connectivity. It's very, very quick. We're actually now pulling in more connections than we've ever delivered before because we've got more services that we can deliver. And if you start thinking about this in a different way, I don't have to have lots of contractors coming on site to be able to deliver it, and the ICT department is going to grow. So what the standards say, and I don't want to bore anybody, but EN 50173-6, there you go, I wrote it. What we're actually talking about there is a 12-metre coverage area in any room, depending on the layout of which we're going to do from a zone box deployment. If you think about one of your particular offices areas, think about the number of data points that you've got going in, then have a look up at the ceiling, and then see how many light settings and light fittings that you've got. We can actually massively reduce that and give you more control. So you're going to get certain things with IP, you know, and a better design. We're going to get much more integrated delivery systems. We're going to have massive cost savings on design and installation time. One of the biggest things that I always find out when I talk to contracts is about installation time. When is this project going to be delivered? We have a delay because the electrical guy's here. We have a delay because I'm waiting for this to be done. We have a delay because I'm waiting for this. Well, let's think about it. Let's get rid of all those other trades, bring everything onto an IP platform, onto your centralized cabling infrastructure, which you're upgrading all the time anyway. Then you're going to get rid of a lot of those delays, and you're going to have a good cost saving to go back to your facilities team with, and they're going to be happy. So trying to put it in a different way. I've got Chris, he's my facilities manager. He's a happy person. Building infrastructure, power, cooling, lighting. He's been doing it for years. He's probably been employed by the university for about 35 years. He's a very senior person in his own world, and he doesn't like change. We've got Sarah, she's our ICT manager. She's hip, young, trendy. She wants to drive things forward, so she's potentially looking at networking, different types of applications, the data center, cloud servicing. We've got Mark, he's our security services team. And we've also got somebody new into the frame now, and this is a guy called Stefan, and Stefan's going to be your environmental manager. Have you universities got environmental managers? A couple of nods. HSBC, just to give you an idea, they were about to sign a global agreement with a carpet supplier, global agreement, and they found out one thing on environmental policy and they binned the whole project. You know, so these environmental people are really sort of taking over, and then we've got Tom, you know, our money man, the person at the top of the tree who's got to pay for everything. So I was talking to Tom, facilities guy, and he was talking about he's got some new projects. He's got to upgrade the lighting system. He's got to do some HVAC controls. He's got to make it more integrated, more convergence. Yeah, ICT needed to upgrade their cabling from Category 5E because they wanted to move up to Category 6A because they wanted to make sure that their wireless was going to work for the future. Yeah. Everybody, if you think about your switch upgrades, whenever you upgrade your switch, it's more powerful than the switch it was before. So let's make sure that the infrastructure is able to support it. Security, he's doing a migration, and he's got a budget for that project, and then we've got our environmental person. But the interesting thing is it all comes back to Sarah, because Sarah starts then thinking about other things like the replacement of the cabling system, the AV control systems, the wireless, things like room booking systems. You know, why have we got power into a room if no one's there? Why have we got cleaners going into clean rooms if no one's there? Why are we heating this room if no one's there? You know, and all of these things start to come into play and have a cost saving. So questions start coming in. Security, he's going, I don't understand these IP cameras, can you explain it to me? Facilities, I'm thinking about LED lighting, that's going to be very, very simple. Yeah, and environmental is concerned about the green message. Well, I just started trying to lay it out. Now, you guys have all got cabling partners that you work with, installers, good and bad. Some of you are sometimes happy with what you get. Sometimes you're not happy with what you get. I'm just going to say that goes down to your specification, and I can help you with that. But if you start looking at it, you know, if you've got someone doing your LAN and your wireless cabling, that's always going to be your data person. Your audio visual, you might get a separate trade-in to do it. Why? You might think about your IP CCTV. Oh, facilities are going to bring a separate contractor in. They don't need to. You start thinking about your LED lighting systems. It now moves to power over Ethernet. And it continues and it continues. And we can actually get this. So this is now one contractor using one containment field, which is going to speed up your installation and give you much more control from an ICT point of view over the function and delivery of a building and how it's going to work. But I wanted to talk about Chris, because he's our facilities manager, and he's thinking about other benefits. Well, reduced installation time, only one partner I've got to beat and kick with. Yeah, eliminates proprietary cabling systems, which I know that you're all pained by. And you've got reduced labour costs and more rapid deployment. Simplified management controls. But Chris then starts talking to someone else, because he's in the facilities world, and he says, do you know what, I don't need to do any of this. All I'm going to do is I'm going to take out all of my current strip electrical fittings, and I'm going to change it to LED light tubes, because that's the quickest fix. I don't need to worry about power over Ethernet. Company just did that beginning of the year out in the US. They took out the Verizon wireless network because there is a thing called a ballast that sits in the lighting system, and it actually took out the whole wireless network for Verizon, took out 4 or 5 blocks worth. And they were fined, I think it was more than $112,000 a day, and it took them 6 weeks to fix it. Now think about that from a business point of view. Do they continue taking out the other businesses and having a situation now, or do they just shut their office? They had to close their office until they resolved it. And it was purely because of a bad design. So we've got environmental credits. He wanted to get a 30% reduction. He's got it. Higher asset utilisation, reduced cost savings, energy efficient, risk management and control. Everything comes back. Everything can be controlled centrally. Sustainable business ethics, and of course we're getting on to, you know, a growing concern now over our green message and our corporate social responsibilities. With segregated budgets, it's really hard to define what you want to do. If you've got a singular budget where you're working with from facilities and IT working together saying this is where our business is going to be in 3 years' time, this is where our business is going to be in 5 years' time, you can actually go back with a huge cost saving back to your university, back to your Vice-Chancellor, because you can actually go back and say, I've got a cost saving here, which is actually going to improve our ICT network, it's going to improve our control over our building, and it's going to improve all of the user's experience. And it's not just the student, but it's also the employee, you know, the member of faculty staff that's working there. So I'm always tend to go over, so I'm trying to finish quite quickly today. But I don't just want to talk about cabling, it's management and control. If we actually integrate everything onto an IP-based network, we can actually manage and control, get information from everything we do. Wireless LAN projects, just to be clear, if you are deploying a new wireless LAN project, you need to just freeze for a second and just ask you one simple question. Have you deployed 2 Category 6A links to that wireless access point? If you haven't, you've got a problem. Because next year, or actually available this year, all of the new wireless units are all actually now 2.5 gigabit. If you're plugging in a Category 5E or a Category 6 that's running at 100 meg, it won't deliver 2.5 gigabit. Each wireless access point needs 2 connections now, and they are, we hope by next year, going to be delivering 5 gigabit. So you've got to think about the switch that's driving it and how you're going to build it. Because the only thing that we know with the wireless network is there's more and more push and more drain being placed on your wireless network. You've got to think about whether you're going to use shielded or UTP cables. Just to give you an idea for your environmental manager, shielded cables give better heat dissipation, because if we think about everything we're doing now, everything's moving over to power over Ethernet. There is a general heat build-up. Shielded cables will dissipate better. Please do not use UTP, because you can have a potential heat build-up in your cable. That will also affect your network performance, and we'll talk about that if anybody wants to do it offline. But I also want to talk about things like EMC compatibility. There's new requirements now for EMC compatibility in the standards, and across most European countries now, the more EMC compliant you can make your building, the less you pay in taxes, because you'll actually get green benefits and green credits that you can claim back for. I don't want you to plan for 5 years. Your switch migration might be on a 5-year plan. Has anybody ever been to Jersey or Guernsey? I can't say it. Jersey or Guernsey? Has anybody ever been to one of those 2 places? A couple of people. If you've got pots of money, that's where you're going to end up, isn't it? You're going to go out there, you're going to buy yourself a nice Porsche, and you're going to be really, really happy. Well, this is the situation where we are today, that we have got lots of people still employing Category 5E, Category 6 networks. Think about it. In 5 years' time, when you upgrade your switch is going to be a 10 gigabit network. It's just like driving in Guernsey. You might go out and buy a Porsche, but the speed limit's only 30 miles an hour. So when you upgrade your switch isn't going to be able to deliver what it's capable to. And if we think about 5 years' time, we now, most commercial switches are now only 10 gigabit. Now, when we're starting to talk now, we are now talking about the development of 40 gigabit base T switches. So, just on copper alone, we are now moving at huge data rates and where we need to be. I think I'll end there. I'm probably ahead of time for once.
You are, yes.
That's unbelievable. Well done. Any questions from anyone? Or that's really good. Thank you.
Anybody got a question? Yes, Tomo.
So I'm halfway through a new building project, working closely with my estates department, and we love and hug and embrace each other every day. But the stuff...
I think you tell lies.
Yeah, but it's still the issue that the stuff that the estates people want to put on our networks is a challenge. IPv4 only. These vendors are not thinking about IPv6. Their security posture is so weak, it's woeful. And we then have to apply sticky plasters on top of stuff just to keep it kind of safe and secure. So although I hear all of this great stuff and I'm more than happy to embrace it, that part of the industry needs to wake up and smell the coffee, and they are failing to do so. And I try and beat them up as much as I can, but I just fear I'm fighting a losing battle, because a lot of these devices just got really hokey-cokey network stacks in, even serial to Ethernet converters that only want to speak 10 meg, and you want to try and plug that into a 10 gig capable switch, and it won't do that speed. And I mean, you talk about the Porsche and the slow lane, but this is not even the slow lane. This is like the horse and cart. I just leave you with that kind of observation.
No, I think you're absolutely right. A lot of the universities that we work with, we've actually done, I would say, a very good job meeting the facilities team with the ICT team. And we actually, I don't want to use the word scare, but I sit on the British standards, so I write the cabling standards, for the UK and Europe. And we actually take them through because I'm also involved in the development of the electrical standards. And there are lots of legal requirements based in health and safety about cabling, which nobody ever thinks about. It's just data cabling. But it massively is of interest when we start talking about electrical safety. And so we sit down with a lot of these teams, and we actually get the facilities team and the IT team together, and we say, are you aware, facilities, that if you do this, you're breaking the law? If you do this, you're breaking the law. Just, and I can go to any university project, any commercial project, and within 5 minutes I will find breaches of law. If anybody wants to talk offline. So what we tend to do then is we sit down with the facilities and the ICT team, and we say, we will help you develop an ICT strategy or goal of how you want it to be deployed. So when you then take that, you will then from a IT team, you will have a document which you will then give to your facilities team, and whenever your facilities team then issue out, what they do is they actually include that as part of the ICT requirement of what is going to be delivered. Because the reality is quite interesting. You will go to your facilities team and say, I'm having a new build, I want to deliver 4,000 outlets, and that's all they hear. And then they're just away into the world, how much is it going to cost me? They're then going to take that contract, and that contract's going to go via a consultant. Some consultants are very good, some are not so good, I will be honest. That consultant is going to do a basic design. That then goes to a main contractor. The main contractor will then issue that to the electrical contractor. The electrical contractor, by the way, is only interested in electrical. And then he will then take the data section, and he will then farm the data section to anybody else he knows down the road. And your quality and level of control really starts to disappear, especially about what you want your network to be and how you need it to work. So if we can develop into a document that your facilities team agree, that say, this is the ICT spec, you will follow it. Then if you can get their buy-in at a higher level, because I do wonder how many of you go back to an installation that you've just had and go, it doesn't work, it's not suitable, it doesn't deliver what I need it to do. What is the cost increase to go back and fix it? It's astronomical. So we do a lot of work, and then one of the things that I'm very keen on is when you're actually having your infrastructure delivered, I will actually come on site and make sure it's fully compliant to what you said it's going to be. Because nobody actually ever goes up and looks in the ceiling or under a floor to actually make sure that you're actually getting what you paid for. So we actually spend a lot of time actually saying, if you're investing £1 million in an infrastructure, £500,000 in an infrastructure, I want that to work for 20 years. And when I say I want it to work for 20 years, if you're employing, say, a Category 6A solution, it's designed to support 10 gigabit Ethernet. That's its job. I don't care about a product warranty on a bit of cable or a connector. What I care about is the channel. And if the channel says it's going to support 10 gigabit Ethernet, that is the only thing that I'm interested in. So from my point of view, that's the only warranty I'm interested in. Because I want you to be able to come back in 5 years, 6 years' time when you upgrade to the next device, that it's going to be able to work. And if you suddenly find out that your infrastructure is not working and it's related to your infrastructure, you don't want a partner to be able to say, oh, well, it's just what we've got and we've got to live with it. Actually, you want to go back to your manufacturer and get them to replace it at their cost, because that's what you've paid for. You've paid for a warranty. I hear lots and lots of times with universities where they sit there and they go, well, that's what I've got to live with it. That's not what the university's paid for. That's what the facilities have allowed to happen. And if you think about it, I don't want to be rude about facilities guys, but they could probably still use a pen and a pencil. But, for us now, if we can't have our, connection to our laptop or, our internet devices, then we might as well pack up and go home, because that's the environment in which we sit. So, building a robust structure does mean buying in facilities, and it's not easy.